What if I told you there's a place that shouldn't exist? Not a hidden cave, not a classified military base, but an entire town, streets, houses, people that you can drive into, but never find again. And what if I told you? I've been there. I remember the first time I saw the sign. It wasn't large or fancy, just a weathered wooden board with the name Halewood painted in fading white letters. I almost didn't notice it. It was late afternoon, and the road ahead of me stretched like a ribbon of cracked asphalt through endless fields. I had been driving for hours, halfway between nowhere and nowhere else when my GPS froze. No signal, no coordinates, just nothing. I should have turned around, but something in me, curiosity, boredom, maybe both, made me take that turn, and that's where everything began. If you're the kind of person who follows roads just to see where they end, or opens boxes without knowing what's inside, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Secret Box, where every answer opens another question. If you love stories that unfold one secret at a time, hit subscribe, and let's take this road together. This account was reconstructed from the notes of a traveler who claimed to have driven into Halewood in April 1972. The road to Halewood was narrow, flanked by oak trees whose branches knitted together overhead, casting the asphalt in a patchwork of gold and shadow. It was one of those early autumn afternoons where the air smelled faintly of wood smoke and fallen leaves. The kind of day that makes you slow down without realizing it. The houses appeared slowly. A white farmhouse with a sagging porch, a red brick school with a bell tower, a row of shops with striped awnings. It wasn't a ghost town. Far from it. There were people. A woman sweeping her front steps, kids chasing each other with paper airplanes, an old man in a flat cap sitting on a bench with a folded newspaper. Everyone looked normal. And yet, there was something off. He couldn't quite name it. Maybe it was the way no one seemed surprised to see a stranger. Maybe it was the way the air felt heavier here, as if sound didn't travel the same. He parked his car in front of a small cafe with a painted sign that read, Mara's Place. The door chimed when he walked in. The smell of fresh bread and coffee wrapped around me instantly. Behind the counter, a woman with silver hair smiled. Passing through, she asked, her voice warm, but her eyes. They lingered on his a second too long. He nodded. Yeah, my GPS quit on me. Thought I'd see where this road goes. She poured his coffee without asking. Not many come this way, she said softly. Then, almost as if she was talking to herself, and fewer still come back. He sat at a small table by the window, watching the street outside while Mara refilled his cup. Everything in Halewood seemed behind by a few decades. The clothes, the cars, the way people moved without staring at their phones. It was like stepping into a photo album from the 1970s, except the colors were real and the air was warm in his lungs. A man in a brown suit walked past carrying a leather briefcase. He glanced in his direction, then kept walking. But there was something about him. Not threatening, not even unfriendly. Just studied, like he was memorizing him face. Does everyone here know each other? He asked Mara. She smiled faintly. More or less. Then she added, You're lucky you came today. Why's that? She hesitated. Some days the road in doesn't open. Before he could ask what that meant, the cafe door swung open, and a boy, maybe 12, burst in with the kind of energy only kids have. He stopped dead when he saw him. Not like a shy kid meeting a stranger, more like someone recognizing a person they'd only heard about. You're not supposed to be here, he blurted. Tommy. Mara's voice was sharp. Go on home. The boy backed out, but his eyes stayed locked on his until the door closed behind him. At the 20-minute mark, he was walking down Halewood's main street, notebook in hand. He don't know why he started writing. Maybe to remember the details. Maybe to prove to myself later that this place was real. The hardware store's sign creaked in the wind. A barbershop pole spun slowly, and then he saw it. On the wall of the post office, tacked between two yellowed flyers, was a map of the county. Only Halewood wasn't on it. He traced the road I'd driven, the curve through the oaks, and it just ended. Nothing but blank space where the town should have been. That's when an older man in a wool coat stepped up beside his. Looking for directions. He gestured at the map. It's not here. Your town isn't on the map. He looked at his for a long moment, then smiled, but it wasn't a smile that reached his eyes. Some places he said quietly. "Don't like being found." And just like that, he walked away, his footsteps fading until the street was silent again. The afternoon light in Halewood seemed reluctant to fade, lingering in a strange golden haze. He had been walking for hours, though his watch insisted it was still 3:45. Somewhere between the cafe and the edge of town, time had begun to feel like the air here. Thick, slow, and just slightly wrong. He took out his phone and snapped a photo of the clock tower, wanting proof, but when he glanced at the screen, the image was blank. Not distorted, not blurry, just empty. The tower was gone, replaced by a pale sky. He tried again. The street, the row of brick storefronts, the crooked lamppost, but each picture dissolved into the same featureless wash. Only the people appeared, frozen mid-step, their faces sharper than the real moment. At the bakery, a woman was arranging loaves in the window. He asked, almost without thinking, "Do you know why my pictures don't work here?" She didn't look up. Maybe Halewood doesn't want to be remembered. The bread smelled warm, familiar. He lingered a moment too long, and when she finally met his eyes, there was something unreadable in her expression, like she'd already seen him leave. By now, the streets had grown quieter. The boy from the cafe, Tommy, reappeared, standing across the road with his hands in his pockets. The wind ruffled his hair, but he didn't move. "Why did you say I'm not supposed to be here?" he called. He crossed over, careful to keep his voice calm. "Because you aren't," Tommy answered, like it was the simplest truth in the world. "People like you don't stay. People like me." The boy's gaze darted past him toward the post office wall, where the county map still hung. "You'll see." Before he could ask more, Tommy turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner. But when the man followed, the alley was empty. Later, he found himself at the edge of town again, where the road dipped under a canopy of old oaks. The asphalt looked the same as when he'd arrived, yet the air here felt heavier. A single signpost stood at the bend, its lettering almost worn away. No arrow, no distance, just the name. He turned back toward the town, and that's when he noticed the faint hum. It wasn't mechanical. It was low, almost like the vibration of a voice too deep to hear clearly. He couldn't tell if it was coming from the ground beneath him or the sky above. And then he saw the man in the wool coat again, standing halfway down the street. The man raised a hand, not in greeting, but in warning, and mouthed a single word: "Go." The warning hung in the air long after the man in the wool coat had vanished. He stood still, every instinct urging him to obey, yet some deeper pull, a stubborn curiosity perhaps, rooted him to the spot. The hum was stronger now, threading through the silence of Halewood like a second heartbeat. He decided to follow it. It led him past the shuttered hardware store, past the library whose doors were locked despite the sign reading "open," and finally toward the old municipal building. The structure loomed larger than it should have, its stone facade weathered by decades of rain and neglect. No cars were parked outside, no lights glowed in the windows, yet the hum seemed to pulse from within. The front doors gave way with a reluctant groan, revealing a vast hall lined with framed photographs. He stepped closer. Each frame contained an image of the same clock tower, the one he had seen earlier, but in every photograph, the surrounding streets were different. In one, the buildings were modern glass and steel. In another, horse-drawn carriages rattled past. In yet another, the square was nothing but a grassy hill. Dozens of eras, dozens of versions of Halewood, and there, near the center of the display, was a frame containing a photograph taken from above, an aerial shot of the town exactly as he had walked it that morning. Except there was a figure in the street, small and indistinct, but unmistakable in posture and clothing. It was him. A sudden scuff of footsteps made him turn. The boy, Tommy, stood in the doorway, watching him with an expression that was no longer casual curiosity, but something closer to urgency. "You found it," Tommy said quietly. He asked what it was, but Tommy didn't answer. Instead, the boy crossed the room, pulled a folded sheet of paper from his pocket, and pressed it into his hand. "Keep moving," Tommy said. "Don't stop until you're outside." When he unfolded the paper, it was a map. Not a modern one, but something hand-drawn, with delicate ink lines and a few landmarks marked in faded red. Halewood's name appeared, though the rest of the county was unrecognizable. Across the bottom margin, written in the same hand, were 5 words. "Only one road goes forward." He looked up to ask more, but the boy was already gone. And from somewhere deep within the municipal building, the hum rose into a resonant tone that vibrated through his ribs, and with it came the distinct sound of something unlocking. The sound of the lock releasing echoed through the hall, deep and deliberate. He turned toward the far end where a narrow door stood ajar. The hum was pouring from it now, as if the town itself was breathing through that gap. He stepped inside. The room beyond was smaller than expected. A records office, perhaps, though it looked abandoned. Dust lay thick on the cabinets, but the center table was spotless, as if someone had been here only moments ago. Spread across it were stacks of maps, each one different, yet all depicting Halewood at various points in history. Some maps bore dates decades apart. Others differed only in subtle shifts. A building gone, a road redirected, a park where yesterday there was a post office. And then he noticed the last stack. Blank sheets, except for a single sketched outline. The same road he had taken into town. At the end of the road, instead of Halewood, there was only a question mark. Behind him, the door clicked shut. His breath caught. He turned, and the man in the wool coat was there, standing between him and the exit. Up close, the man's face was lined but sharp, his eyes fixed with the steadiness of someone who had delivered this speech many times before. "You're not the first to find this place," the man said, "but you might be the last who can leave." The narrator's voice would describe how the man's words weren't a threat, but a statement, something heavy with inevitability. "You came in on the forward road," the man continued, "but the forward road doesn't always go back. If you stay too long, you become part of the record." He gestured to the maps, to the photographs, to the ghostly absence in the phone's camera roll. They don't vanish because they're forgotten. They vanish because they're kept. The hum deepened, vibrating in the soles of his shoes. He glanced at the folded map in his hand. Only one road goes forward. He knew what it meant now. There was still time, but not much. The man in the coat stepped aside, giving him the path to the door. "Decide," he said. "Stay, and you'll remember nothing beyond these streets. Leave, and you'll remember everything, but you won't come back." He didn't answer. There was nothing to say. He pushed through the doorway, the hum receding with each step until it was nothing more than the memory of a sound that might never have existed. When he reached the edge of town, the sign was there again. Halewood, 0 miles. But now, at the bottom, someone had scrawled in black ink, "Not on any map." He crossed the bend, and behind him, Halewood disappeared, not into fog or shadow, but into the quiet certainty of a road that had never been there. The road ahead stretched empty beneath a pale afternoon sky. He walked for what felt like hours before the familiar outline of the highway appeared in the distance. Cars passed again, their engines breaking the silence, the world resuming its normal rhythm as if nothing had happened. At a gas station on the edge of a neighboring town, he stopped for coffee. The cashier, a middle-aged woman with a bright red name tag, rang up his purchase without looking at him. But when she glanced at the folded map peeking from his coat pocket, her expression flickered. Curiosity, then recognition. "Where'd you get that?" she asked. He hesitated. "An old place. Doesn't matter now." She gave a dry chuckle. "Halewood, right? My grandfather used to tell stories about it. Said it wasn't on any map because it moves." She shook her head. Of course, he was half out of his mind by then. He smiled faintly, pocketing the map. "Maybe not as much as you think." Outside, he unfolded it one last time. The inked line of the forward road was still there, but now the question mark at the end had been replaced by a single word in neat handwriting. A chill, not of fear, but of recognition, settled over him. Halewood hadn't been the destination, it had been a door, and somewhere ahead, another waited to open. He folded the map, tucked it away, and started walking. Not toward home, but toward whatever the map decided to draw next. Some mysteries are solved in the light of day. Others remain in the folds of a map, in the quiet space between two towns, waiting for the right traveler to pass by. Halewood may never appear again on the same road, or perhaps it will when you least expect it, when the air feels too still, when your watch hesitates for a heartbeat, when a road sign points somewhere you've never seen before. It wasn't about the town. It never was. It was about the way it made him look closer, question longer, notice more. And maybe that's the real gift of a place that doesn't exist. It reminds you that the world is bigger, stranger, and far more connected than you think. Here at The Secret Box, We believe every unanswered question is an open door, and each door we step through brings us closer to the next mystery. If this story made you wonder what else might be hidden in plain sight, then subscribe now and join us for the next journey. Keep your eyes open, keep your curiosity sharp, and if you ever find yourself on a road that doesn't appear on any map, you might just be closer to the secret box than you realize.